Hey everyone, today is Tuesday, May 29th, 2018. This is the YOSHICAST, and this is episode number 2 of Bag Board.
Yoshi!
Welcome back, everybody. So, shocking to me, I actually got some feedback and comments from my first episode of Bag Board. So that's what we're going to start off with. We're going to go over that feedback and those comments, talk about it, and then we're going to go over my comic book haul since my first video and Bag Board those together. So let's get started. So my first comments come from user Dogcades on Twitter, and Dogcades writes, I blame Yusuf Tanha for this, and he's got a picture of a recent haul of My Lights Bags and Boards. If you guys watched the first episode, you know that I use My Lights Bags and Boards to bag and board my comics. This is archival grade stuff, guys. You will have to wait 100 years before you have to replace these bags and boards, unlike traditional cheap bags and boards. The bags are also, they also protect against UV damage, so you can confidently display your comics, ideally not in direct sunlight, and it'll keep them from fading. Unlike if you had them in a normal, in cheap bags and boards or just had them without protection. These things do an amazing job, and I actually have a cabinet where I rotate out the books that I display in my dining room for when guests come over and just so I can look at them. So they're pretty cool. They're good stuff. I'll include links to those down below. Then I get a follow-up direct message via Twitter from Dogcades asking or saying, I've not heard of Microchamber Paper. Will you be covering this, and how is it used in packaging? Can you do this in the next YoshiCast? Sure, absolutely. Microchamber Paper is used for archival purposes. They use this in museums, they use this in universities, and they use this with comic books. CGC uses microchamber paper. As I understand it, they put microchamber paper after the cover and after the last page of a comic book. And what it does is it absorbs any acids that the book may have. It absorbs the pollutants. It'll eliminate odors. It takes care of smoke. It takes care of mold. It takes care of mildew. It's crazy how many people, especially with older books, had comics and were smokers or were around smokers. And, you know, the comics do absorb that, and microchamber paper definitely helps. And I do the CGC method. I put this in between after the cover and right before the back cover. So right the front and the back of the comic book. And so it'll absorb the acids. You know, the comic book paper, the tree pulp it's made for, this stuff naturally breaks down and will emit acids. It will excrete acids. You know, again, I take things to an extreme level. I'm archiving collecting. I'm not just collecting. So this microchamber paper will pick it up, and it will absorb this basically until the paper is full. How long does that take? Depends on the book and depends on what it's been through. What you can be sure is, like, if you put it in your comic and say after, I don't know, 10 years, it's absorbed to the maximum. The paper is absorbed. It's not like the paper gets thicker or anything, but it's absorbed the most it can absorb. It's not going to release that. It's not going to re-put that into your book. It's there to stay. And you know, when you go through your collection, however often you do that, you know, if you see that the microchamber paper is dark, is absorbed a lot, you know, switch it out, obviously. But generally, it's safe to just put in and leave it there, and that's what I do. This is what it looks like. It is the size of a sheet of paper. I'm sorry, it's the size of a comic book page. So it fits almost perfectly with the cover. There is a watermark. I don't know if that's going to show up. Yeah, there it is. So there's a watermark authenticating that it is microchamber paper. It's conservation paper. It's archival paper. It's safe. And I'll include a link where you can get this down below. And I actually got some older books from my haul. So I'll be using this, and you can see how I put this into my comic books. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Dogcades. We're going to move on to Steve. And Steve commented about the video on Facebook. And he had a lot of kind things to say. He wrote a lot. I'm going to skip through it, but I really do appreciate all the kind things you said, Steve. Thank you so very much. It makes me feel like that first effort was definitely worth it. But Steve goes on to say that while you are very handsome and wonderful to look at, I think it would be nice to have a second angle where the camera is overhead looking down just at the books, and you can cut to that while you're bag and boarding them. I get the feeling that you want a quick and easy show with minimal editing, with a loose sort of vibe. I know it ends up taking time to do multiple angles and cuts. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I just set up some new lighting, as you can see. I've got a second camera set up to show me bagging and boarding the books. This will be easy, Steve. Thanks for the suggestion, and we're going to do it. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I just set up some new lighting, as you can see. I've got a second camera set up to show me bagging and boarding the books. This will be easy, Steve. Thanks for the suggestion, and we're going to do it.
This hasn't been easy, Steve. I've been at this for 3 goddamn hours.
Do it!
Shut up, Shia.
Just do it!
So thanks to everybody who left a comment on my first bag and board video. Feel free to leave a comment down below on YouTube, on my website. I'll include links to all my social media down below. Feel free to hit me up. I'm more than happy to hear what you have to say, answer some questions. And let's move on to my haul. All of these books I picked up from my local comic book store, The Comics Place. Now, I'm lucky enough to have 2 comic book stores in my town. The Comics Place is my primary location that I go to. And I picked up this copy of G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man. I'm a big fan of both these franchises. I haven't read as many G.I. Joe books as I would like to. I'm hoping to get into that down the road here. I have read a few $6 Million Man books, and I've enjoyed them. I first heard about this book at Emerald City Comic Con last March, and I also found out that an artist I follow, Brian Shear, is the inker on this comic book. So I wanted to pick it up to support him, and I'm also a fan of both these franchises, so I figured you can't go wrong with that. I've read the first 3 issues, and they are good. It's like a climb. It starts with building the story, then the action kicks in. It's been an upward enjoyment for this book, and I'm looking forward to finding out how it ends. It's just 4 issues. This is the last issue. I'm looking forward to reading it later tonight, and yeah, I was also not sure. I've read the first 3 issues. I wasn't entirely sure when in time the events in this book take place. I was thinking 70s, 80s, 90s, but certainly not current. And I messaged Brian on Twitter, and he confirmed it takes place in 1983. So that was kind of cool, being a kid of the 80s and going back in time a little bit to enjoy a story here. So let's go ahead and bag and board this guy. So when I picked this comic book up at the Comics Place, I just had them put them in one of their generic bags and boards. My comic store is not one that pre-bags and boards anything. You have to ask them to do it and pay for the bags and boards, of course. And the way I bag and board is I like to remove them from the cheap bags, place them on my MyLite full back board, a little towards the top here. And I'm not going to put any microchamber paper in this guy, at least not yet, because I still want to read him. I'm going to open this up one more time before I put him away for a good long while. But this is a comic book series after reading the first 3 issues I'm going to keep. So I will definitely be putting the microchamber paper in this issue after I've read it. What I like to do is pick up the comic by the board underneath, and then I'll take my MyLite's bag and I will slide it in bottom first. Of course, I'm way more nervous doing this on camera. And just let it settle a little bit. Now, something with these MyLites I've noticed, and you do need to be careful. I find this more when I mail my books off to be, my blanks to be sketched is when I find this. But, either through the mail or through the artist handling the bags and boards, these corners crack. And I don't know how to explain that. It's from being dinged in shipping or the artist just, being rougher with it. Like you can't be as rough on the corners with this as you can with the MyLite bags as you can with the generic ones. These have way more give, and you can tell just by holding it. Like they'll give a little bit more. But these will crack. Now, I don't necessarily know if a cracked corner of of these bags makes a difference in the preservation. Personally, when I get a sketch cover back, that's the first thing I look at. And I've just learned this through experience. Like I check the corners to make sure that they haven't been cracked. If they have, I do go ahead and replace the bag. These are great bags, but the cost of one of the things you just have to know is that they are a little higher maintenance. These are for archival purposes, not to be, shifted around in a comic book store and comic book boxes by, hundreds of hands looking for a particular issue. So keep that in mind. And you guys saw me, I was dinging this thing. I mean, they could take a hit, but if they get banged, that's going to crack. The corners are for sure going to crack. That's what I've noticed with these bags. I haven't come across any other issues like that I haven't read about somewhere else online. So, yeah. So that book is bagged and boarded the way I normally do it. I will flip this guy over. I will grab some of my artist tape, my archival grade tape. Again, I will make sure that there are links to the tape and the bags and the boards I use, and now the microchamber paper down below, so you can get that. And I like to push on the back of it, get all the air out that I can, fold over the top, and just put the tape on. I tend to do it sideways. And the reason I started doing it that way is I noticed it was easier to open the bag if the tape was on sideways. If it was straight up and down, for some reason, it's a little bit more difficult. And I don't know why. Just this allows you to get under it at an angle and lift it up easier for future reading or looking at it. So yeah, that is my that is my bagged and board G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man in My Light bags. And man, that thing just looks beautiful in these bags. All right, now I'm really excited about these next set of books. We are talking Ghost Rider. I have wanted to read Ghost Rider comics. I've wanted to get into Ghost Rider. Honestly, I was blown away by the first Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider trailer. I love that movie. I love the second movie. I know it didn't get a lot of love in the theaters, but I liked it. And I know I'm not getting a true representation of Ghost Rider, hence why I'm going to start collecting the books. Now, unlike The Punisher, where I've got 1 through 100. I almost have that entire thing complete. I haven't started reading it yet because I know I'm just, in my gut, I know I'm going to love that. I'm still not quite sure about Ghost Rider. So these are the first Ghost Rider books I have found. And we're going to start with issue 25 of Ghost Rider. And take a good look at how this looks right now because it's going to pop when I get this in Mylar. This is issue 25. Now, I think I'm going to govern myself and not allow myself to collect any issues past 25 until I get the first 1 through 25 and read them and make sure I'm going to like them before I start just buying Ghost Rider like crazy, like I have with The Punisher. So, again, the Comics Place had these books, and I grabbed 4 or 5 of them here. We're going to bag and board each one of them. So this is Ghost Rider number 25. So, the Comics Place, the store that I frequent, does a good job of buying people's collections when they bring them in, and they also buy collections online. So their back issues are always getting refreshed. They're always getting new stuff, which is fun. Every time I go into that comic book store, I know I'm going to see something I haven't seen before. It's not just stale stock that they don't refresh. Now, this is also a book I am going to use I'm going to use Microchamber paper with. So you're going to get to see how I put the Microchamber paper in this book to help preserve it. I did a lot of reading about Microchamber paper before I started buying it and using it, and I also recently did some more reading to answer Dogcade's question about microchamber paper. And I just wasn't sure how deep into the subject I should go. I have read a bunch of good information on it. I read a bunch of wrong information about microchamber paper. But to put it simply, you could say it pretty much stalls out the aging process. I originally got into microchamber paper because I had heard some horror stories from friends of mine who had signed books, and the Sharpie ink from the cover that was signed was rubbing off to the inside of the plastic of their cheap comic book bags. Now, I don't know if it was because it was cheap comic book bags that it rubbed off. I don't know if it was the humidity, if it was the temperature in the room, if it was just kept in heat, or if it was kept. I don't know. But one solution I was told about or suggested was, you should, because there are chemicals in Sharpie markers, because there are factors involved that are not involved in a normal book, you should put microchamber paper in it. CGC does this with every book they grade and slab. Why not? So you can tell this book, the pages I would call off-white. I wouldn't say too far off-white, but off-white. These are not white. I've seen whiter pages of books this age. And this is just part of the aging process, something that microchamber paper is going to help with. So I'm going to grab a sheet of microchamber paper here. And this is all there is to it. Take it, put it in as level as you can. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. It's not going to make it any less effective, but it's cut to the size of comic book pages. And if you're collecting different ages, Silver Age, Golden Age, they have cuts of microchamber paper for the various ages of books. Let's get one more sheet. This is a little hard to do with white gloves on. Let's get one more sheet here for the back of the book. I'm just going to take a quick look and make sure there are no ads clipped out. I've done that. This is something you should definitely do, especially at a convention if you're buying a book that's worth a few bucks. Like, ask for permission or have them open up the book and verify that there's nothing cut out, nothing missing in the book. I have had that happen to me before, where they cut the price down substantial once it was discovered that there was an ad clipped or something wrong with the inside of the book. Now, there's different trades of thought here about putting microchamber paper in the various pages. It won't hurt. I figure that I'm going to do it this way. Microchamber paper is, you have to pay for it just like any other comic book supply. And I don't know if the benefit of throwing it through the entire book every couple of pages is really worth it or not. I would welcome a discussion on that topic if anybody wants to talk about it. I don't know. I have this dream to go to my local museum here in town, or even the college, and speak to an archivist and see if they have any experience with microchamber paper and what their thoughts would be about using it with comic books. Maybe that's something I can do for a future video. But right now, I'm doing it the way I understand CGC does it, right after the front and back covers, and that's how I do it. There you go. That was a pretty book. That is just gorgeous. And that pops so much better. Man. So we'll throw some tape on this guy and we'll move on to the next book. I've got 3 books to go. Next up is Ghost Rider issue 24. Another pretty book. You can tell compared to the last book. Like look how muted this bag makes the colors. Look at that orange. Let's get this guy in a bag and board and see how much better it looks. I have found out in the past, I'm going through on my this is probably where Dog Cates got around to asking me about, or why he got around to asking me about microchamber paper. Like I'm going through my comic book collection right now, and I am reorganizing it. I'm getting rid of a lot of duplicates I have, slimming it down, making some space for some new books. And one thing I kept talking about online was adding microchamber paper to it. But one about this tape, like, I don't care if it's Scotch tape on cheap books. Like, I've found, remove the tape, take the tape completely off the plastic before you take out the book. All it takes, and this is what it took for me, is one time that piece of Scotch tape sticking to the cover. And when you try to remove it, no matter how careful you are, it's going to screw up that cover on some level. And I had that happen to me, and damn it, I take off my tape now. I've had, in going through and reorganizing my books, there's some books with Scotch tape on them where the Scotch tape won't come off these cheap bags. And, I just have to bend it over so it can't stick to anything. And I take it out and I throw the bag and board away because ick. I don't want it to damage anything. This is a pretty good book. I'm not going crazy about the grades of these ghostwriter books. I want to read them and enjoy them and take care of them. Just looking at it here, I don't know if the camera picks this up. The biggest thing I see are some nicks on the spine, which hurts the grade. There's an indent here in the corner. Nothing too terrible. I would have accepted this book in a much worse grade for sure. There's some definite yellowing on the pages. It's definitely more prevalent here on the top and down the side to about here, and then it's more even the rest of the way through. And what caused that? Was it the storage condition? Was it that these books weren't in bags and boards at all for a while? I don't know. But they are still enjoyable. They are still readable. Let's do a quick flip through, make sure nothing's cut out. Plenty of stuff to be cut out. Very, very pretty book. I'm so stoked to have found these, and I'm looking forward to reading them. Now, I think I understand issue number 1 is going to be a little pricey. I'm anticipating around the $100 mark. Maybe I'm completely off on that. I haven't done any research into that. And then I think there's another issue, like an issue 8 or 9, that I've been told is rather pricey to get your hands on. But after that, it's not too terrible. These weren't terrible to me. And my comic book store, also because I have a pull list there, and probably just because I've been doing business with them since even when I was in Alaska, they cut me a bit of a discount on stuff. So that's cool. Man, I'm so excited to read this series. I mean, just Ghost Rider seems like such a cool character. And look at that. Way more. I mean, that just sharper, pops better. I love how these books look in these things. Next up, Ghost Rider issue 22. That's beautiful. There's a lot of stuff going on here. What's going on? I want to read about it. I really do. I got to get issue number 1 first. Now, if you're doing like me and you're going through and organizing older comics that have been taped up for way too long and it's sticking really bad to the bag, just grab a pair of scissors and slip under there and cut them off. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. So I don't know if you can see that about these Gerber boards. So one direction has a curve to them. So this kind of bows out. And the bowed out side is the side you want to put your comic on, not the concave side. You'll also notice that it's not perfectly white. It's not like they bleached these, because that would defeat the archival purpose of it. So they're not pretty. Don't expect them to be bleach white like your old bags and boards or your old boards. They are archival grade cardboard for your paper documents. This guy looks pretty good. I would say he's about the same grade as the other one in different ways. There's 2 nicks, one here. I don't know how well this is showing up. Haven't done this before. You guys will have to let me know what about I'm doing works and what doesn't work, what I should skip. There is like I wouldn't say a crease, but a crease right here. One here. As I'm letting the light glare off of it, kind of looks like somebody had put a piece of paper down or a notebook down on top of this and wrote on top of it. It's not horrible. You can't really see it. It's going to present very well in the bag and board, which is good. You know, when you go down to grade it, if you were trying to resell this, you're not going to get top dollar for it by any means, but it's going to present very, very well. And a lot of people want that. They want to be able to present it. A lot of people buy the books to present them, and then they buy the trade paperbacks to read the stories. I tend to enjoy reading from the comic book because then you can see these awesome $6 million man ads that you wouldn't normally see. I've been going through, as I've been organizing my own collection, and if you guys want to see the progress I'm doing on my own collection, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. I'm posting images. I'm posting the most on Instagram. But I'm running into books that have ads cut out that I was unaware. And I just add a little sticky to the comic book bag indicating, you know, ad cutout or pen ink on a certain page or something, so that when I either sell the books or take the extra books back to my comic book store for some store credit, they are aware of what they're getting. They don't have to go through and sift through every single book. You know, I don't have the largest comic book collection in the world, and but I've had that artist tape for 5 years. I still haven't run out of it. But then again, I'm just using little square-sized cuts, little square-sized tears of it for my books. So there you have it. That thing looks great too. So last for this video is Ghost Rider issue 19. And the thing that sticks out to me about this one is the logo. Between 19 and 22, the logo changed. So here we are. We are about to bag and board issue 19 of Ghost Rider. Now, so when you look at the cover, got a couple of nicks on the spine, some spine nicks. And there's a little bit of, I don't know, bag wear here on the bottom of the book. Wasn't terrible. There's a dark spot up here. I don't know if that's from printing or just the way the book was taken care of. Inside, the first thing that jumps out at me is what looks like tire tracks right here. This is the dirtiest book I've seen of this Ghost Rider set. It is the oldest one, so that might explain it. I don't think the pages are as yellowed as the other books, which is interesting. I have found in buying comics over the years that previous owners of books had stashed away like comic book cards or other things in comic books. It's pretty interesting to me. A time capsule, if you will. I also know back in the day, hang on a second, let me put this microchamber paper in first. Back in the day, kids and parents would send books back into Marvel and DC to have their favorite artist or their favorite writer sign the books. And they would sign the books. The examples I've seen are with Bic pen right here at the bottom of the first page, which I think is a pretty cool idea. It's a good way it's a neat way, I think, to get your comic book signed without ruining the cover or marking up the cover. It seems like comics, it's okay to have the cover signed, and with books, authors tend to sign on the first or second page of the book and not on the cover. It's very interesting. I've debated about having some comics signed that way. Maybe not with a Bic pen on the first page, but some sort of archival ink on the first page. We'll have to see. We will have to see about that. I think it'd be fun. I keep hoping I'll open up one of these older books and find that it was signed on the first page. That would be really cool. Be unfortunate for whoever got rid of the book, but be cool to find. And that's Ghost Rider 19. That just looks great. So that's it for this episode of Bag and Board. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Feel free to message me down below, or my social media is also located down below. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, my website, YOSHICAST.com. And I don't go to the comic book store every week, so I don't do a Bagged and Board episode every week. But when I get new books, I'm happy to put up an episode, and I'm looking forward to reading these Ghost Rider books, and as soon as I get this thing edited and up on the internet, I'm going to finish off that last G.I. Joe versus the $6 Million Man. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.